Imagine you could be two places at the same time. With quantum physics, scientists have actually done experiments where things like teleportation and existing in two places at the same time have been proven possible. The same particle existing in two different places at once. Unfortunately, this is only on a tiny molecular scale for now. The technology for you to be at work and also on the beach on a beautiful day probably won't exist for a while. But have you heard of quantum computing? Quantum computers use these laws of quantum mechanics to do what would have previously been magic. Imagine a computer that can be multiple places or multiple states at once, like being able to read every book on the planet at the same exact time. That's the kind of speed and power that's on the table with quantum computing. And a technological leap like that is nothing we've ever seen. It's like flipping a switch from a bicycle to an intergalactic spaceship. We're talking about tackling problems that are so complex, current computers would take thousands of years to solve them. And quantum computers can do it in the blink of an eye. Quantum computing, AI, VR, AR, these things exist right now. It's not science fiction. And yet, with all of this computing power, we still can't make a robot that can play catch like a human, or stand on two legs and walk with a normal gait. The most basic human movements that babies can do before they can even speak. And what about conversation? Because Siri and Alexa have been talking to us for years, but they aren't thinking. Even ChatGPT can't think. It can't come up with its own ideas. It can't even come up with bad ideas. I mean, how hard is it to come up with a bad idea? I do it literally all the time, and I'm not a $1 trillion supercomputer. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Levitan, a board-licensed coach who has been working with people just like you to create positive change in their habits, routines, and behaviors for over a decade. Albert Einstein said, "One's measure of their intelligence is their ability to change." Whatever it is that you want in life, you can have it. And it's there waiting for you on the other side of changing something about your habits, your routines, or your behaviors. It is that simple. So now, let's make it easy. Today, I'm going to discuss a fundamental paradox discovered by a computer programmer who was working with artificial intelligence, and what that paradox means for you and how you can use it to help making creating positive change easier in your life. While it's easy to think of technology like AI as a recent invention, it's actually been around for a while. I mean, ChatGPT is new, but artificial intelligence is not. It's existed as far back as the 1950s. And in the 1980s, Hans Moravec was a professor of robotics at Carnegie Mellon University when he observed something that he thought was curious. See, he and the other engineers he was working with had just naturally assumed that as they began to build more complex robots and more complex AI systems to take on more complex tasks, that the challenge in building these things would scale accordingly. The thinking being, harder tasks to complete would be harder to program and build. They thought that the things that were very challenging for humans to learn, like playing chess or how to program extensive computer algorithms, would be equally challenging to program into a computer system. And similarly, they assumed that things like walking or throwing a ball, things that humans learn to do in the first months or years of their lives, when our brains aren't even fully formed, would have to be simple to program for a computer to do. Well, turns out they were wrong. What they found out was it was the exact opposite. It turns out that programming a computer to play chess or a complex game like the ancient Chinese game of Go actually isn't that hard, because these things have rules and computers are good at rules. And computer scientists decades ago figured out how to make programs to write code or solve advanced computations that even the smartest humans would not be able to do on their own. But something like throwing a ball, picking up a cup of coffee and bringing it to its lips without spilling any liquid. These are things that still today robotics experts and the smartest computers in the world have not been able to figure out. And this has come to be known as Moravec's paradox, which says that for computers, high-level reasoning require very little computation, but low-level skills demand enormous computational resources. Or, as Moravec put it in 1988, it is comparatively easy to make computers exhibit adult-level performance on intelligence tests or playing checkers, and difficult or impossible to give them the skills of a 1-year-old when it comes to perception and mobility. So what does this have to do with creating positive change in your life? Well, think about how often you focus on the quote-unquote big decisions, those high-level reasoning tasks like choosing a healthier diet or what exercises to do in the gym or how to build a business. Well, it might surprise you, but these decisions are like getting a computer to play chess. They seem challenging at first, but the reality is we have rules for them, and rules are easy to follow. You can pick up a book or an online guide on exercise routines, diet, business, whatever, and it will give you a blueprint laid out step by step. Now, consider the automatic, almost unconscious actions you perform daily, like tying your shoes or navigating through your house without bumping into furniture. These things seem trivial to us. You actually don't even think about them. But they're incredibly challenging from a how does this get done point of view, and impossible for robots and AI. And that's an important reminder that the things that you take for granted, the habits and routines embedded so deeply within you, are actually marvels of biological computation. So when we talk about changing behaviors or forming new habits, it's essential that you appreciate the complexity of what you're asking your brain to do. You're not just making a high-level decision. You are reprogramming a highly efficient, deeply ingrained system in the supercomputer that is your brain. You're trying to rewrite code that's been efficiently optimized over decades, centuries, generations, millennia. And that's why behavior change is so hard. But it's also why it can be so rewarding. Hey, real quick, we'll be back to the show in just a few seconds. But right now, I have to tell you about the free Change Made Easy private Facebook community. If you want to join hundreds of change seekers just like you and get free trainings, resources, and direct help from me in order to help make your quest for change easy, then click the link in the show notes that says Facebook group now. You'll be directed to my private Facebook group that I created just for clients and listeners of this podcast. And as a bonus, you'll get a free hour-long training on eliminating self-sabotage. All you have to do is click Facebook group in whatever podcast app you're listening on right now. Okay, let's get back to the show. While Moravec's paradox is about robotics and computing, it's not a far leap to see how it applies to us as humans. Something you might have heard me say before if you're a regular listener to the show is I hate the term easier said than done, because everything is easier said than done. It's easy to speak, and it isn't easy to act. Similarly, the things that are the quote-unquote simplest to do tend to also be really freaking hard in practice. Want to lose weight? Simple. Just eat less and move more. Want to have a better relationship with your partner? Simple. Just listen to them and don't respond with anger. Want to have $1 million business? Simple. Just find a need in the market and serve your customers. Simple, simple, simple. Just. And yet, as simple as it is, more than 60% of Americans are obese. 50% of marriages end in divorce, and the amount of Americans who are millionaires is in the single digits percentage. So if it were that easy, why can't you do as Nike says and just do it? And that's Moravec's paradox for humans. The thing we think is complex is often figuring out what to do, finding the plan to follow, or learning how to get from point A to point B. But it turns out that this is actually the easiest part. And the thing that we will think that will be simple is just do it. And that's actually the real challenge that keeps you stuck. Because it turns out that the change you're struggling with is less about what the change is and more about consistency. So it's not about figuring out what it is that you need to eat. It's about making those decisions forever. It's not about getting 10,000 steps today. It's about making 10,000 steps your average over the course of your life. And it's not about working diligently on your business or your relationship today. It's about making that the rule rather than the exception. Because everyone can do it once. I'm sure you have. Whatever your thing is, you've done it one time on a small scale. You might have even thought to yourself, wow, that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And that's the fatal mistake. It was like Moravec believing that getting his computer to play chess would be the big challenge that he had to overcome. He was relieved when he learned that, oh, that was actually a lot simpler than I thought. But then, when he was trying to tackle a straightforward task, or what he thought would be straightforward, of getting a robot to mimic simple human movements, boom, stuck. No dice, no action. And here we are 40 years later, still trying to figure out the same exact problem. Except for you're not trying to teach a robot to walk or throw a ball. It's teaching yourself to remain consistent with the behaviors, the habits, and the routines that you need to stick to reach your ultimate goal. It would be natural to assume that if you can do something once, you can do it twice. And if you can do it twice, you can be consistent with it forever. That's simple. In practice, though, we see that the thing that seems simple ends up being the exact place that you tend to slip up and fall off. Because remember Moravec's original assumption that more complex systems would scale accordingly in challenge, meaning that each new level would reveal even more challenge. So from A to B might be hard, but B to C would be harder, and C to D harder than that, and so on. But he found that that was fundamentally wrong. The route to lifting 100 pounds is the same route to lifting 1,000 pounds. You train the same way for a 5K that you would train for a marathon. You just got to run longer. Building a $10 million business is built on the same fundamentals that you build a solo entrepreneur business. And the reality is it actually gets easier as you scale. The work is still hard, but much of the upfront friction comes from not knowing and the time and the energy you have to invest in the beginning just to get things going. And that goes away at higher levels. So the challenge does not scale with the complexity of the goal. The challenge scales with the consistency that you need to achieve the goal. Meaning the bigger or grander the goal does not make it more complex. It just makes it more important that you are consistent for a longer time. So now understanding this, how can you use it to your advantage to make change easy? Well, first, let's look at what happened in the field of AI and robotics since Moravec discovered this paradox. Because remember, prior to this, high-level cognitive tasks were considered the peak of what computing software wanted to do. Think things like puzzles, chess, writing code. But once this paradox was revealed, it led to a complete reevaluation across the field of what needed to be prioritized. Researchers began to focus more on developing algorithms and robots that could handle tasks involving perception, spatial navigation, fine motor control, skills that humans acquire early in life and perform effortlessly. Things like throwing a ball, laying down on the floor and getting up, putting a spoon into a mouth-sized hole without spilling any liquid. Because again, Moravec's paradox served as a wake-up call to these robotics and AI communities. It highlighted the underappreciated complexity of human movement. All of the things they thought would be easy were actually hard, and all of the things that they thought were hard was actually easy. And that pushed researchers to reconsider what it actually means to be intelligent, and how do they actually replicate that intelligence in machines. And this led to, in more recent years, a much more holistic approach in AI research and development that aims to capture the full spectrum of human, physical, and cognitive abilities. So what does that mean for you? Well, the first step is just like it had to happen in the field of robotics and AI, there needs to be a total reevaluation of priorities. And just like those engineers who shifted their focus from what they thought the problem was to what they now understood was the real challenge, your focus has to go from the minuscule day-to-day tactics of what to eat or what workout to do or what business plan to follow, and instead shift to looking at the real challenge, which is the long game. The question isn't, what healthy food should I eat? The question is, what is a way of eating that is both in line with my short-term goals and that I can remain consistent with for the long-term future? And then, like researchers have found in the last 2 decades, it's about taking a more holistic view of changing your behaviors. You have to realize that nothing exists in a vacuum. Every decision you make in one area affects other areas of your life. It's easy to think, well, yeah, meal prepping works. I'll just meal prep, pre-cook some chicken, and then I have healthy meals for the next 3 days, and I'll just keep doing that forever. But that's a short-sighted view. What about when you travel? What about work and family dinners? What about social events? What about the fact that when you start exercising, you get more hungry and those meal preps don't leave you feeling satisfied? So there's a ton of other aspects that you're not looking at when you're looking at it only from one angle. So like the programmers who thought they hit the ball out of the park when they were teaching a computer to play chess, when you get excited about a single routine or a new strategy, you're missing the bigger picture. Taking a holistic view means you have to zoom out and see everything. You can't look at eating without looking at exercise, sleep, and stress. You can't look at stress without looking at work, family, relationships, and exercise. And you can't look at exercise without looking at social events and finances and work. Finances, sleep, diet, stress, exercise, work, family. It's all connected. It's all part of the whole. Imagine a fitted bedsheet. If you pull on one corner, the other corner pops off. What you do at the top affects what happens on the bottom. So what you think is hard is finding the starting point, the meal plan, the exercise routine, the business idea. But ideas are a dime a dozen. Plans are free. Go ask ChatGPT. What's actually the challenge is doing the small things consistently over time forever. It is not about any one big change, one idea, or one shift. It's a lot of small changes layered over time. Moravec's paradox says that complex computation is easy to program, but the simplest tasks for humans are fundamentally impossible to teach a computer. For you, you can think of it as this. The things that you think will be hard actually tend to be quite simple. Because remember, in the 21st century, information is abundant and it's free. The actual challenge is showing up and doing those small, simple things day after day after day. So my action step for you this week is to take a step back. Like those programmers in the 1980s, start to take a holistic view. When it comes to the actual change you are trying to make, zoom out. Think about what the actual challenge is. Often you'll see it isn't the complex one of, but it's the simple repetition that you struggle with in the long run. When people hear the concept change made easy, I get a lot of pushback. They go, well, no, it can't be easy. Change is hard. And that's the point. That's the paradox. People think it has to be hard, and that is what stops them from doing it in the first place. And when you can flip that and make it easy, it gives you the space to do the hard thing long enough to get the result. Moravec's paradox showed us that sometimes it's exactly what seems obvious and apparent that needs the majority of our focus. Don't worry about the complex high-level stuff. Get great at the basics. That is change made easy. Don't forget about the free Change Made Easy private Facebook community. Come join hundreds of change seekers just like you and receive free trainings, resources, and direct help from me that will help make your quest for change easy. Just go into the show notes of whatever app you're on right now and click the link that says Facebook group. You'll be directed to my private Facebook community that's just for clients and listeners of this podcast. And as a bonus, you'll get a free hour-long training on eliminating self-sabotage. All you have to do is click Facebook group in whatever app you're listening on right now.